Every myth, there's a grain of reality. And in this series, we'll try to find the grain that exists in every legend. This voyage will take us to 3 continents and many countries, unearthing clues, piecing together fragments of fact and some marvelous fiction to do with the private lives, sometimes sensational, often deplorable, of our leading characters.
Amo verumque cano Troia, qui primus ab oris Italiam feto profugus, Laviniamque venit litera. Of arms and men I sing, the first who from the land of Troy to Latin shores did come. The opening lines of the greatest Latin epic poems. Virgil introduces the Trojan hero who is to lay the foundations of the city of Rome. Aeneas came from a noble family. His father was Anchises, king of Dardania. His mother, Aphrodite, goddess of beauty. Aeneas was famous in both Greek and Roman eyes for his valor. The only Trojan leader to survive the sacking of Troy. He had to flee for his life. Roman legends tell how he carried his father, King Anchises, out of the burning city. Then, inspired by Zeus himself, he fled to fulfill his destiny. For 7 years he wandered the seas with a handful of Trojan fugitives. He visited a lot of countries and suffered a lot of hardships. He met with Harpies and the Cyclops, fought with the massive whirlpool Charybdis and with the monster Scylla, braved an eruption on Etna. Finally fell in love. At one point, all he wanted to do was settle down and marry Dido, the beautiful and powerful queen of Carthage. But in the end, he obeyed Zeus's orders and continued on to the mouth of the Tiber. Dido's curse went with him. According to the Romans, Aeneas was a genuine hero who knew no fear, a man of exemplary virtue. The Greeks naturally could not see him in the same flawless light. With his friend Paris, Aeneas had undertaken that fateful journey to Sparta, where he kidnapped the beautiful Helen. Menelaus, king of Sparta, had to leave the city and so innocently ordered Helen to look after his visitors' every need. Helen did so in her own fashion. Had it just been a question of love, one might have forgiven and forgotten. But along with Helen, the young heroes also took King Menelaus' state treasure. And because Paris had his hands full of booty, someone had to look after Helen. And that someone was Aeneas. The result was the Trojan War, a war which was to drag on for 10 long years. Thousands of ships and hundreds of thousands of men came to the shores of Troy to avenge themselves for a double insult to one of the great Greek kings. What happened to Troy is common knowledge. Aeneas had to flee together with his aged father and his son Ascanius. For thousands of years, this moment has inspired the world's leading artists. This is a work by Bernini. And this is Raphael's contribution. Aeneas set sail from the port of Alexandria, Troas. Unlike that of Odysseus, the journey of Aeneas can be readily reconstructed, thanks to the Roman poet Virgil. First of all, he skirted the shores of Thrace. Then the island of Delos. Then Crete. Then around Greece and Italy through what is known today as the Straits of Messina. At this point, he was driven by storms to Africa. Afterwards, his ships sailed from Carthage via Sicily to the mouth of the Tiber. One of his first stops was the island of Delos. Delos was a holy island to the ancient Greeks. According to mythology, the god Apollo and his sister Artemis were born there. Here stood the famous temple of Apollo with its oracle, where the Trojan fugitives were given an inkling of what lay in store for them. Today, a few marble lions survive from that archaic period. The fugitives ended up on Crete, but fate would not leave them there for long. They fled from Crete following an outbreak of the plague. Endless days at sea. Scylla, the monster that devoured mariners and smashed their boats to pieces on the rocks. She was said to have her lair on a rocky island in the Straits of Messina. Could it have been here? Today, this island is known as Scylla. From here, storms drove Aeneas to the shores of Africa, to Carthage. ruins of the city that for so many years was Rome's only rival. The Carthaginians were Phoenicians. They were not familiar with the arch. Instead, they used the split vault. It was in Carthage that Aeneas's destiny was most threatened. Dido's obsessive love came close to holding him back from his destiny. Finally, however, he tore himself away, and a deserted Dido committed suicide. But first, she cursed the Romans forever. Perhaps the later wars between Carthage and Rome were wars of revenge for Aeneas's desertion. The voyage to Italy went off without incident. A short stop at the oracle of the Sibyl in Cuma, where Aeneas hears of the fame of his future city. Illustrated here on this priceless vase. Finally, the mouth of the Tiber. 10 years of wandering by Aeneas and his Trojan fugitives had come to an end. Here, Aeneas subjugated the surrounding tribes, and having achieved victory, united his people with those who had lived in the area since time immemorial. And so what became the Roman nation came into existence, eventually taking its name from the city which Aeneas's descendants, Romulus and Remus, were to found much later. So, according to Virgil, was founded the city of Aeneas, known today as Rome, the Eternal City. A city which ruled the world and has survived for centuries, where old and new beauties merged to create one of the most famous and most beautiful cities the world has ever known.
And we continue this morning's entertainment with the Little Rascals trying to raise money for Pete's sake.